Hi, my name is Brenda Titus. I'm a professional hypnotist in Orange County, California. For information about myself and my program, including in-person sessions, please go to my website, ochypnotherapy.com. Today's thoughts from the hypnosis office. We are continuing to explore the things that scare us as I'm talking about fear through the month of October. Now, of course, you can watch these videos anytime, but like I said, I thought I would really focus on this particular topic of fear for several weeks coming together. So today's topic, we are going to talk about what is commonly referred to as the Sunday Scaries. Now, if you don't know what the Sunday Scaries are, I'm really happy for you, but I definitely invite you to continue, and I think that you'll learn something anyway. But generally speaking, we think about the Sunday Scaries as that time during our weekend or our time off. Sometimes it's just from day to day, but our time where we kind of drop our guard and we start thinking about what is coming tomorrow, what is coming at work or at school tomorrow, the emails that have already been piling up over the weekend, the meetings that we need to attend, maybe the difficult tasks that we have ahead of us, or people that we don't necessarily enjoy working with and seeing them again, or the ever-mounting to-do list. So unfortunately, the Sunday Scaries, the real problem and concern, and why I want to talk about it, is that it really robs us of our being in today, because we're already so focused on, oh no, what's going to happen tomorrow. So I wanted to think about the Sunday Scaries from some of my experience that I've had here in the hypnosis office from two different perspectives. So the first one has to do with making sure that we're getting enough rest and rejuvenation during our time off so that we can truly face and have the right energy, mental and emotional energy to face what is to come. And the second part has to do with fulfillment and making sure that we are fulfilled in our careers or in our day-to-day life, so that we can be excited about getting up the next day and taking that on. So first, let's talk about rest. So we live in a pretty heavily scheduled, heavily committed world these days. The kids have sports and activities and play dates, and parents, of course, and people, I mean, whoever you are, family, friends, and there's a combination of commitments, things that we have to do or should do or need to do, and then there's the things that are our hobbies, the things that we want to do, and they might be really enjoyable, but they take up a lot of our time and energy. So what we need to be sure is that we're getting the proper amount of rest and rejuvenation during our weekends. Now, everybody's need for rest and rejuvenation is going to be different. I work with a lot of people who are more introverted. They need more time to themselves, and that includes myself. And so I just need to be sure, am I getting enough me time, enough time to do what I want to do during the weekend, my own hobbies, my own, rest time, recovery time, getting my exercise in, and all of those things. So, so we want to be sure that we're, getting all of those things in. So, one thing that I've learned over the years with my clients has been, okay, well, how do we, budget your weekend time, so to speak, or your downtime, so that you can do the things that need to be done and still have time for you. Now, the reality is sometimes that means really budgeting our social commitment time, how many events we're going to attend, how much peopling, so to speak. Sometimes, being with some people, it's going to really feed us and fulfill us, and so we feel good and energized. Other times we might have certain social commitments where it's going to be more taxing, and and so we just have to really be aware then of how we do that. So sometimes, the reality is we're going to start with, budgeting, being sure that we're giving ourselves enough downtime, rest time, and, through our time off to be sure that we get that. Now, sometimes beyond balancing, that might mean cutting something out, recognizing, are we overscheduled? Like I said, and that's even with things that we love and enjoy, are we giving ourselves enough time? Because by the way, the next part that is important to talk about is, during the weekends or our downtime, oftentimes that's also when we're doing the things that are around the house, our chores, the laundry, the cleaning, the gardening, the grocery shopping, the errands, all of those things. And we do have to take that into consideration when we think about, all of the things that need to be accomplished during our weekends or our downtime or our time off, our time that isn't at work, I guess, or at school is probably a good way to think about that. So we do need to be sure that we're taking that into consideration when we're looking at how we schedule our time and our lives, to be sure that we're fitting it all in and effectively getting the rest and rejuvenation that we need. So sometimes that might mean cutting something out. Sometimes it might mean, like I said, balancing our social commitments. Now, the next thing that we might need to do is to delegate responsibilities within the household. And sometimes that might mean, who's doing what. Also recognizing, I work with quite a few parents, and lately, kind of feeling like mom is taking on all of the household chores and what have you. And so we've been talking about how to do some age appropriate incorporation of household chores with the kids as well. Maybe mom does the laundry, but then the kids, need to fold their laundry or put it away, or, different things like that. And as we add in, helping with dishes or housework and all of those things. So first part, delegating responsibilities within the household. Now, the next one, though, has to do with getting help from outside, and really recognizing, when we think about some of even the household responsibilities, those were based on, single, one person leaving the house and going to an outside job, and the other person staying home and running the home. And that was their job, was to do the cleaning and the cooking and all of those things. We commonly have two income households these days where both people are working, or maybe there's more parenting responsibilities with the person who's at home, and so like homeschooling and getting the kids to all of their activities, that there isn't time for all of these other household things. So that is where we do need to look at the reality about getting help from the outside, whether it means getting doing Instacart to hire somebody to bring in the groceries, or having a housekeeper, somebody to help with some of those household chores, different things like that. So there are, gardeners, different ways that you can get help from the outside. And so really being aware of that. So we talk about balance, delegating responsibility, and all of that. So the next part that we have to talk about, very important when it comes to our Sunday Scaries, and that has to do with fulfillment in what tomorrow brings. And the reality is that I have seen this with client after client, that some of that element around these Sunday Scaries is that they are not happy in their jobs. And so the anxiety that comes from going back to work is that they are either unfulfilled with the work, the mission, the responsibilities, or the people that they work with or for. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to just kind of tack onto the idea of fulfillment. What is coming on Monday that we aren't looking forward to, that's adding to that anxiety? So the first thing that we need to do is have the reality check, and sometimes this means acknowledging the truth about that situation, and then recognizing, okay, well, do I need to change? Can I make a change? Recognizing, changing careers. I mean, that can be very scary for people. It's kind of the devil we know. We give up a lot to stay in, jobs that aren't fulfilling or rewarding, or that really, are satisfying, because at least we know what is expected of us. We know what the pay is. We know, what the boss is like. We know what the responsibilities are, and so it's kind of easy. But it can also be it can be easy-ish, I guess, because we also lose a lot through that. But the other side of the coin on the reality check of do you need a change is, can a change be made? And, we need to be very careful about how we step into that situation to be sure that, yes, if you're interested in a transition, putting your ducks in a row, working through your confidence. I do that a lot of times. I really help people prepare for, the next step in their career by, through this process of feeling better about themselves, regaining their confidence, regaining their spark, so that they can go into, the next part of their career, and making change in a more positive way. And now, but of course, sometimes we're really in a position that, we're not going anywhere. We're going to stay in this particular job, or career, or, what have you, for a variety of reasons. And then I would really say, how can we make this situation more fulfilling, more rewarding? And I have worked with people who have said, I do not agree with the particular mission of my company, but philosophically, and but there's no way, they were very, they weren't going to leave. They couldn't afford to, or whatever the circumstances were. And so we needed to find ways to, think about that in a different way. And honestly, then we really also built on, making the home life, or the life when they weren't working, more fulfilling and rewarding, so that the day-to-day work didn't feel so difficult, and quite frankly, painful, and internally, the internal conflict associated with that. So I think that there's ways that, we can, think about, making it feel more rewarding, and or the experience of our jobs more rewarding, and then that will help with that as well. So, and of course, maybe finding some ways to have the outside be more rewarding and fulfilling to balance that out. So, I also think, this is the next kind of final thing that I wanted to share, is one way or the other, really building some boundaries around your Sunday Scaries. And whether that's, boundaries around your work email. Don't look at it. Boundaries around where you let your mind go. I'll sometimes use the idea of like a box, and you can think about a box over here, and the box comes open, and it's like, oh, that's my work brain or whatever. We go like, nope, it is, I'm not getting paid right now. I'm not at work, so that box stays shut. And you kind of have to think about ways that you can symbolically think about that. So it's like, keeping the box shut, putting the boundary around your work, and really letting your mind not wander towards Monday until it's time. And that's really when we say, don't lose today in anticipation of tomorrow. So you deserve your day off. You deserve your time off. You deserve your rest and rejuvenation. You deserve your sanity. And if you're feeling unrewarded and or unfulfilled in your day-to-day life, that is something, to think about and to look into and see what you can do to make it more rewarding. Of course, also make sure that you're getting all the time and energy to have rest and rejuvenation as well. And so I hope that this topic, thinking about those Sunday scaries and what you could do first, put the boundaries around it, but also how you might be able to prevent those Sunday scaries as well by, listening to what is scary so that you can find some better ways to manage it. So I hope that you enjoyed today's Thoughts from the Hypnosis Office on Sunday Scaries, and I wish you a joyful week, a purpose-filled week as well, and especially when you hit next Sunday, keeping it in the box until you get back to Monday. All right, have a great week.